Welcome to the Worth Listening podcast, where we focus on having positive and productive conversations about money. Join your host, Lauren Williams, four-time Olympian turned financial planner, as her guests share their money stories. We aim to help you own your personal money story and feel good talking about it. Money is a tool that can help you live the life you want. You should feel comfortable listening, sharing, and communicating about it. Now, here's your host, Lauren Williams.
Hi, and thank you for joining us today. This week, I'm excited to have Rocky Garza on the show. Rocky is a speaker and entrepreneur that engages individuals and groups in a process called identity mapping. Identity mapping is a technique that helps to define who you are beyond what you do. So I'm not just Lauren Williams, a financial planner. Who am I beyond what I do? In this episode, Rocky shares his financial experiences with us, from his humble upbringing to how he earned and lost a full ride scholarship. We also talk about how he became a homeowner at the age of 24. Wait for it though, while he was making $25,000 a year. Rocky also gives us insight into how he and his wife handle their finances and why budgeting became important to them for their present and future. Let's listen as Rocky shares his money memoir with us. Rocky, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm really glad to be here.
Well, today we're talking a little bit about your money memoir. We're going to walk a little bit through your story, your life, let the listeners get to know you a little bit. So let's just start out at the very beginning. Tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you came from, and kind of what your first memory of money was.
So I'm from Dallas-ish, I say. I'm from Texas, kind of lived a bunch of places growing up, but all in all, I'd say I'm from Dallas. Moved around a bunch growing up, lived all over. Went down to San Antonio for a little while, came back up to Dallas, Frisco, Carrollton, Farmers Branch, kind of made my way around the Metroplex. But my parents got divorced when I was young, and so just moved around with my mom a lot for her job and her being married and getting divorced and getting married and getting divorced. And so that was kind of part of the road too. So I would say my first memory of money, I don't really remember it at a young age thinking about money, or I had a really rare upbringing in the fact that I lived with my grandparents a bunch growing up, and my grandfather and my grandmother got married the year I was born. My real grandfather died before I was born. And so he didn't have any previous kids and they didn't have any kids together. And so I lived with him a bunch growing up. So I was kind of like my grandparents' only child. So I was like the kid that my grandfather never had and the kid that my grandma got to have, but after she had everything she needed to actually raise a kid. So really for me, like, it was a really fortunate and rare occurrence. I don't remember thinking about money. I don't remember thinking about, we don't have enough money, or I can't get that or have that. I also don't know that I was a super needy kid. I just hung out with my grandma a lot. And so I didn't really have video games or a bunch of toys or things like that. That really wasn't my life growing up. It was much more, I guess you could say, experiential. I was going where my grandma was going, doing what my grandma was doing. But that being said, my grandparents definitely always had all the money they needed. They have a rental properties down in South Dallas and kind of Oak Cliff area, and they have almost my entire life. And so I think for me, that was a really fortunate thing, I guess, to be able to get to see. The more I think about it and talk about it, really, I guess my first memories of money were just like cash, going with my grandparents to South Dallas and Oak Cliff and knocking on doors and collecting rent and writing invoice. I remember my grandparents letting me like handwrite the invoice on paper, and you'd tear it off and get the carbon copy, and I'd get to sign it. And then we'd have a little whipped cream jar in the car that we'd keep it all in, and then going home and laying it all across the bed and counting it and then counting it again and helping my grandparents fill like the deposit slips to take it to the bank. And so, yeah, my memory wasn't really about me having it or using it or spending it. I mean, I guess that says something about how fortunate I was, the fact that I didn't have to think about whether we had it or not. But I would say that as far as it's concerned, maybe I was always able to see that there's a way to go out and make money. Maybe that's really my first memory is it didn't seem like it was something that was unattainable or you couldn't have. It seemed like something you had to be really mindful to work hard to go and get if you wanted, if that makes sense.
Yeah, to understand that that's an example that they said was, money comes from working for it versus just saying, here's some money, and you're not really understanding the connection between the two by them taking you around and showing you, we have these rental properties. We need to collect from these people. They need somewhere to live. They need a roof over their head. And so they need to pay for that roof over their head is a great example for a kid to really get at a young age.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In the summertime, it was my job to go work with my grandma and the carpenter who worked in the houses. And we would go every day, and I'd carry shingles on the roof and tear roofs off houses. And As much as I was given as a child and teenager growing up, I mean, I never really wanted for anything. There would definitely hard work was always an aspect of our life too, though. It wasn't that things were just given freely. It was that you were cared for and provided for. But the cost of that was that you were going to do your part and effort and energy to make sure that you worked hard as well. I never really had like a formal job in the summertime, but started in 7th grade, I would go and live with my aunt and my uncle and their 3 daughters. They lived in a really small town up in the panhandle of Texas, and I had a cotton farm. And so I would irrigate cotton and work cattle. And I was there all summer long. And the day school got out, I would go out there and I would work all summer. And of course, they would pay me how much ever an hour for what I was working. And I got to put that in a bank account and save that. And
did you consider that sort of like an allowance? Like they said, go do this, and then they also compensated you for doing it? Or was it more like, if I do this, can I get money for that?
Yeah, I think it was more like a job. I mean, it was more like, hey, you come live with us and hang out with us. And they treated me like I was their child. I mean, I got to go on vacation with them, and I literally just lived with them like I was one of the kids all summer long. It was definitely like a job. I mean, I had things I had to go do. I didn't have the option to go and live there for the summer, but not work. I was going to live there and work. That's where I learned to drive. That's where I remember being 10 or 11, and my aunt, she had an old Volkswagen Beetle Bug. It was orange and a 4-speed stick shift. I remember learning how to drive that when I was like 10 or 11 in an old parking lot there in a really small town. So, I mean, when I was like 13 or 14 or 15, which I guess now thinking about it, hindsight, maybe it wasn't too smart because it's definitely super illegal. But, I would get in the truck at 14 and I'd drive 10 miles down the road to the farm, and I would go work and change water and irrigation wells and come back and be at home for breakfast because I had to get up at 5 o'clock and go. But that's just what the job was. And that's what I had to do. And so it really wasn't an option. It wasn't a choice. That was very much what life was like. I would basically get my money. And again, I think because I wasn't really needing for anything, my grandparents opened up a mutual account, some kind of mutual account for me, and my money would go in there. And my grandfather was also an ag teacher at our high school. And so I started showing animals in FFA when I was in 5th grade. And so all my money that I ever won from showing an animal went into that account. And it stayed there until I was 18. And then I graduated high school and I needed a car. And so I went into a Chevrolet dealership and I wanted a Chevy S10 for some reason. And I went and found the car that I wanted, the one that I could afford, and paid cash for it with the money that I'd kind of saved from growing up and working and from showing animals. And again, thankfully, I was at a place in my life where I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to use that money to live. I was able to save that money over the course of, call it 10 years. But nonetheless, I was able to spend that money and buy my first car.
All right. So now you're equipped with your first car. You're 18 years old. You just graduated high school. So you didn't get a car right at 16. You waited a little bit.
My mom gave me a car that they had that I drove for a couple of years. And then my mom switched jobs and moved, and we ended up having to sell that car. And so I didn't have a car. And so it was time for me to make a decision and buy my own.
Gotcha. All right. So first thing that you bought, this is your first big purchase ever, but did they go and they walk you through the process of getting the car and, helping you understand that?
Yeah, my grandparents went with me, or my grandma went with me, and we went through and picked it out. It was in my name, and I think maybe it had to be in her name too for some reason. I don't remember why. Probably because when you're 18 and buy a car and pay cash for it, they don't trust you. I don't know. She was there with me and she co-signed. And I think what we ended up doing is just to build a little credit. I think I ended up taking out maybe a 90-day loan or something on it, just to say that I had a loan so that I could then pay it off, and so as opposed to writing a check then. And I distinctly remember that. I remember being at the dealership and signing the dot. And I remember I really wanted a standard transmission, and I knew how to drive one, but I hadn't driven one in a year or so. But the truck I bought was a standard. And so I remember pulling out of the parking lot thinking, man, I hope I don't stall out in my new car that I'm driving out the parking lot.
It's so embarrassing.
Yeah, it could be so embarrassing because I don't know how to drive it. But anyway, it ended up going well.
That's cool. All right. So now you're 18, you're heading off to college, or?
Yeah, so I'm heading off to college. I went to junior college for a couple years. My grandparents moved from Farmers Branch down to Ennis, where the summer that I graduated high school. And so I moved with them. I ended up going to a junior college in Corsicana called Navarro for a couple of years. And then during that time, my first semester, I lived with my grandparents. I think school was about a 20-minute commute. And so I just lived with them and commuted back and forth. Going to college, my grandparents said that they would pay for me to go to school. I wouldn't have to take out a loan or anything. And I didn't have to get a job as long as I made A's. And so as long as I went to school, I was involved, I did my part, they would pay for it. And so my first semester there, I only took maybe 12 or 13 hours my first semester, and 12 hours at junior college, at least for me, was not very difficult. And so I was like, hey, this is awesome. I get money and gas in my car and money to spend, and I pay for school, and I have to do is go to 12 hours of class. But that was very short lived. The next semester I took 18 hours because my grandparents caught on that maybe I could do more than 12. My grandpa actually taught a class there in the spring semester every year. And so he said, hey, there's a thing they do. If you go here for a full 2 years and you graduate with an associate's degree before you transfer, they have a thing called the President's Scholarship. The president picks one student every year from the graduating class that he gives a full ride to go wherever they want to go. And so I thought, okay. He said, and everyone that's ever done that, they're a tutor in the tutorial lab their freshman year. And then you have to be involved somehow your sophomore year in some sort of organization if you want to do it. And so I was okay, well, great. So my next semester, I was a tutor in the tutorial lab. My second semester, my freshman year, randomly got approached by the director of student activities there. Got asked if I wanted to run to be the president of the Student Government Association. I ran unopposed, so I won and ended up being student body president. When I was student body president of the junior college, they gave you the option that you could have a room and board for free, since that was what I had. And so I ended up moving on campus my sophomore year. Room and board was paid for. And again, my grandparents, since I was having room and board paid for, my grandparents paid for me to go to school that semester. And at the end of my sophomore year, I graduated and got the President's Scholarship. And so I got selected to have a full ride. For some reason, I'd always wanted to go to A&M, so I transferred to A&M that semester, going into my junior year.
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M, yes, ma'am, in College Station. So I transferred there, had a full ride. I had obviously the President's Scholarship, and I had 3 or 4 other smaller scholarships from random stuff. And so I ended up there going to college. Again, my grandparents said, you got a full ride to go here, so we'll pay for your apartment and your food, and we'll basically give you living expenses, and since school is free. But that was very short-lived. I actually didn't make grades, so I'm not real good with details. So the fact that I even showed up to this podcast and it's working is a miracle. No one told me I had to have a certain GPA to keep my money. And so I didn't fail. I made A's and B's, but A's and B's don't cut it when someone's giving you a full ride. And I didn't know that. And so after my first semester at A&M, I actually lost all my scholarships and all my money. And so found myself on a Friday, the tuition was due, on the phone with A&M because they called my cell phone and said, hey, we just want to let you know your classes are going to get dropped if you don't write a check for your tuition today. So that was a moment that sucked.
Yeah, this is where the plot gets pretty thick.
The plot thickens here. So yeah, I really just found myself like, hey, what am I going to do? Like, I don't have money. I don't have, at this point, if we talk just quickly about lifestyle, I mean, I had chosen to kind of live a lifestyle that was free and wild, and thought I could do all things and be all things for all people, and thought I could party 4 days a week, but also go to class and make A's and B's, which I thought was good enough, but obviously it wasn't. And I ended up not making grades. And so I hung up the phone with A&M. I called my grandmother, again, who will come to find out throughout this story is the saving grace of my life, and said, hey, I don't know what to do. I lost my scholarships. I don't have any money. I don't have a job. I don't really have any friends. At this point, I hadn't really talked to my dad in a couple of years. I hadn't talked to my mom in a year or so. And so my grandma said, who do I call? And I'm super good with details. So I said, Texas A&M. I don't know who to tell you to call. And she said, okay, well, I love you, and call me on Monday. I said, okay, I will. And, and I told her, I said, hey, I'm going to get a job. I'm going to get a credit card. I'll put my tuition on my credit card. I'll pay it off. That's what every other kid seems to be doing. So that's what I'm going to do. She said, no, don't worry about that. Let me do some thinking, and I'll call you on Monday. So very, very fortunately for me, every semester after that, my grandparents just wrote a check for my tuition. I don't think at the time I had any context of what that meant or what that looked like or how grateful I was going to be when I graduated college. But definitely was probably one of the most significant things that happened to me was to have them do that. And so really at that moment, things kind of switched. I kind of began to have a different outlook on maybe I'm not the latest and the greatest. Maybe I'm not the best thing since sliced bread. Since I thought I was able to do all things and be all things for all people when it's not working, maybe I need to be something else. And so I kind of got my act back together and decided I'd pay attention in school. And my grandma and I kind of had an agreement, hey, this is what your GPA needs to be, and we'll keep paying for it. And I said, okay. And so, yeah, really from there, I kind of think my mentality switched and realized maybe things in life aren't just going to be given to you. I think there was probably a point in end of high school going into college and junior college where I was like, as long as I do these 1 or 2 things, everything in life will just be handed to you. And again, that's not because I hadn't done hard work. I think as a teenager, you don't really have the full capacity and maturity to kind of see the full picture. And I kind of just saw the parts that I wanted to see.
Do you think that was reflected also in your spending habits during that time period? So when you had the scholarship and you had extra money?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was just doing whatever I wanted. I didn't have to worry about anything. I mean, I wasn't like out buying like Louis V bags or anything. But I didn't think about going out to eat. I didn't think about buying a new pair of shoes, or I didn't think about putting gas in my car. I never thought about how I was spending money at all. We didn't live in an extravagant lifestyle. And, my grandmother always shopped at Ross or Dillard's, but only if she could get it for 60% off or more at Dillard's. Like, that's her claim to fame. We were getting stuff and buying stuff, but we weren't ever like going to a store and paying full price for whatever we wanted every weekend. So I think some of those things were kind of stuck back there. But as far as my spending habits pre-losing my scholarship, I didn't really think about it. I just did whatever I wanted. And I think after that, maybe I thought about it a little bit more, but I don't really think I really thought about my money or how I was spending it until, I don't know, 2 years ago, a year ago. I'm 34. So there was 10 years of not like extravagant living, just not good money management.
Gotcha. Okay, so walk us through a little bit of the journey to get there then. So we finished college and, what took place next?
Yeah, after I finished college, I went to a place called Sky Ranch in East Texas. I worked there for about 4 years. I was making $24,000 a year. I thought I was rich. I lived with a guy who worked at a camp. He had an apartment above his house, and so I lived there for about a year. After that, there was some friends that worked at Sky Ranch that had a house. Get this, it was a 1,300 square foot house on an acre, and I bought it at 24, making $25,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was able to buy a house. I put zero down, financed it for 30 years. My house payment was like $650 or $700 a month. I was in the middle of nowhere. So the houses were super cheap. I had 2 roommates that lived with me. And so their rent covered the mortgage. So I basically got to own a house for free. Made $25,000 a year. I thought I was living the luxury lifestyle. I had sold my S10 at this point. I had bought a used Chevy Trailblazer just to get something a little bit bigger. And so again, even then, I don't even think I was really thinking about how I was spending my money. I knew I didn't have a lot of it, but I definitely wasn't saving money. And money was getting taken out of my check at that point, I guess, automatically. So I didn't really know anything about that. No one had ever talked to me about it, what I should be doing. And so I thought, well, there's money in my account and I have money to spend. I'm going to get paid in 2 weeks. I'll be okay. And so I don't think I was ever that paycheck to paycheck scenario where it was I was waiting. It was zero to get paid. There was always some money in there, but definitely never a huge saver. That's not something that I think I ever was really told or taught.
That brings up a good point too, because you're talking about not being a good saver, but also being able to purchase a home. And I think that's something we bump into frequently nowadays. There's a lot of loopholes to different things where you have an opportunity. You're like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. And you can do those things that you want to do, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't get your finances in order before that. You've been afforded an opportunity. You now have a house. You said you're making $24,000 a year. There's some other things you could have done to put things in place initially to make things run a little bit smoother.
I think I've always just looked at money going, okay, how much money do I make? And how much money do I make a month? And how much money do I want to spend? I was like the perpetual bad budgeter, but only in my brain. Mm-hmm. How much money do I make? I get paid $2,500 a month. Okay, well, my house is paid for. I don't have to worry about paying that. And I have this car and my car payment's $300 a month. Okay, so now I have $20. I would just kind of work my way down and go, okay, well, that leaves me about $1,000 to just kind of whatever money. Okay, cool. I'm fine. And so I'd move on and go to the next thing. Or what am I going to do? Before I switched jobs, I sold my Trailblazer and kind of went through a quarter life crisis. I was engaged and found out my fiance was cheating on me and kind of living this double life. And so I sold my Trailblazer and decided I was going to buy an Audi because that's what everybody should do after they get a broken engagement, make $25,000 a year. But
exactly what they should do.
So I went and found the one that I wanted and it was used and said, hey, I want to pay this much a month. And they said, great, we can get you one for that much a month. And I said, awesome. But again, I think that's kind of how I made decisions is what, can I do it? Can I afford it? What do I need to make that happen? Let me do something to make that happen. But it was all about the here and now. It was all about immediate satisfaction. It was all about representing something that was something that I wanted to do right this second. And so I just did it. And I think because of the 1 or 2 times maybe that there were instances where that didn't work out and I got saved, I think that's kept a little wherewithal inside of me that's we'll figure it out. But it's like a double-edged sword because I think that's definitely something that's driven my entrepreneurship, but also something that has kept me from being a good money manager.
Definitely not being afraid to take those risks, but at the same time, sometimes you get burnt when you take those risks. So let's talk a little bit about some of the times that you got burnt. Let's talk about some times in your life where you struggled financially.
Yeah, don't ever buy a car. It's terrible. Nobody gives a shit what you're driving. It uses gas like every other car and it gets you from point A to point B. Just because you think you want to look fancy in valet, guess what? No one's looking at you. They're hoping someone's looking at them. So if that's the only reason you're buying a nice car is to look cool in valet, don't do it. I think every instance, other than the first time I bought a car, when I bought the S10 and I paid cash for it, I think every other instance, I would say every time buying a car is a terrible idea and it's never worked out well for me. Now, it's never been miserable. I've never made money on a car, ever.
It's never been something that you look back on and said, gosh, that was a great decision. I don't regret it at all.
Never. The only time I would ever say that is 2 cars we own right now. One, my wife has a new 4Runner that we bought when my son was born 2 years ago. And when we sold our house about 8 months ago, we used some of the money we made from that house and just wrote a check and paid her car off because it was new. It'll last us 10 or 15 years. We have no plans on selling it. She loves it. And we have no car payment. Okay, I feel good about that. And I had an older car that I drove and it died on me. So I sold it. And thankfully, my wife's parents sold us their old at a 2002 Tahoe. So it's 15, 16 years old. And she bought a new one. And so she sold me that one for the money that I sold my other one. So we have 2 cars right now. They're both paid for, make no car payments. And I think it's the best position we've ever been in ever with cars. And I don't ever want to buy another car again.
If only these cars can make it another however long you live.
If only they'll make it another 75 years. So yeah, I mean, I think that's one time where I feel like money has not been good. My wife and I, we've been self-employed since 2010. And so the last 8 years, we've been entrepreneurs and had a couple of different businesses that have done really well and thankfully have given us the opportunity to be self-employed. But we lived experientially. We definitely didn't live where we saved a large portion of our income. We definitely didn't do much in the regards of retirement because we were thinking on the short term, hey, we're making money now. We can pay for the stuff we want now. We can travel now. I don't necessarily know that I would change any of that as much as I wish I just would have had a conversation with someone about a budget earlier. I wish someone would have been like, hey, think about how you're spending your money. And budgeting doesn't mean you just make sure you spend it all. That's not what budgeting means. But I don't think we knew that. And so we've always made fairly decent money. But really up until now, I mean, we don't have like a ton to show for it. We've had the opportunity that we had a house in Oak Cliff, and then we bought a second home in East Texas that we use as an investment in real estate property, rental property now. And so a lot of our liquid has gone to that. We had the opportunity to sell our previous home and then move to a different home here in Dallas. And if I look at it from an asset perspective, we're doing pretty good. We have 2 cars that are paid for. We have 2 homes that we can afford. And we sold a house and made quite a bit of money on that. And so, I mean, I think there's things like that I look at and go, yeah, I mean, some of the opportunities that we've done and had the ability to do has been because we've had the liquid to be able to use. And we've used it that way and taken risk and shut a business down and started a new one and all those kind of things. And so I'm definitely fortunate for those experiences. And again, as you can tell, I guess I'm not risk averse, I should say. I don't mind taking risks at all. But really up until I would even say the last 6 months, maybe 8 months, 2017 was really the first year we like really buckled down on a budget and decided, here's how much money, we're going to run payroll from our business and here's how much we get paid and here's that money goes and here's what it does. And if we're out, we're out. And if it's a 25th and we spend all the money, then I guess we're just going to eat bologna sandwiches for 5 days. And
so what was the aha moment though for that? When did something cut on? You said it was like the beginning of 2017-ish, but what happened that made you say, hey, we got to start doing this differently. We can't just keep makeshifting our plan.
I mean, one, having some really good friends that were trying to have the same conversation and start a budget too. And we kind of joined forces so we could keep each other accountable. I mean, I think that's a huge part of it. Having a child and knowing that we're going to have to go to school at some point and then being able to pay for that and how we're going to pay for school. And we can't just run out of money. It's got to be accounted for. And then I think just wanting to be able to be planned, like not wanting to feel the way we had felt. We shut one business down. We used to be wedding photographers. And so we decided we weren't going to do that anymore. And I was going to start a new business. And so I think knowing, okay, well, how much money do we really need to make in order to survive? So I know how much money I can make in this business and how long we can continue to try to grow and grow and grow. I mean, the growing pains of any business. You think you're going to make this much, and at the end of the year, you're like, well, did not make that much. So I think trying to figure that out too. And really for us, I think it really came down to more of us looking, okay, who are we as people and what do we value? And what do we want to do with our time, effort, and energy? And how do we want to spend that? Inevitably, it's going to come back to dollars and cents. That's the thing that turns the world. And so us going, okay, we want to live this life, caring for people in this way and being able to be generous and to be kind and to plan and to create a future for our son and to put money in a college account and to have money in a retirement account. And we got to have some kind of plan. Like we can't just flippantly think that just one day I'm just going to miraculously start making $1 million a year and then we'll be fine. That's not the way it works.
Yeah, I love one of those things that you just said about sit down and think about what's valuable to you.
Totally.
And in doing that, that'll help your budget fall into place. Like you said, sending your child to school, giving to others, etc. When you start to build a budget around the things that are valuable to you, then you start to work backwards into, okay, I need to set money aside for this and this because this is important to me. And these other things, Starbucks or whatever, is not important to me. And then it becomes easy to budget.
Yeah. I mean, not even just things that are like big deals. College and retirement. I mean, even thinking about things like there's a local coffee shop here in Oak Cliff called Davis Street Espresso. And my wife and son, we frequent there. And by frequent there, I mean they're open 6 days a week. And so we're typically there 6 days a week. And they have great coffee. Don't get me wrong. But for us, it's more because it's in the middle of our community. It's where all of our friends are. Our son wants to go there. It's part of his routine before he goes to school. And his friends are there before they go to school. And it's one of those things like we definitely probably spend an exorbitant amount of money on coffee, specifically at Davis Street Espresso compared to any other person, any other place, because we're there 6 days a week, right? And so let's just say 2 coffees are $2 each. So $4 for coffee, $2 for a scone, that's 6. Say we spend $8 a day. Well, if we're there 6 days times 4 weeks, it's 24 times 8. I'm not that good at math. That's your wheelhouse, but it's 160, 188. Let's call it $200. So we probably don't really spend 200, but we spend easily over 100. Let's call it 150. So we spend $150 a month at one place to have coffee and breakfast because it's a part of our routine. And that's a lot of money. Like there's no way around it. $150 is a lot of money. That's a third-ish of our going out to eat budget, right? We're willing to say for us, it is worth spending a third of what we have allocated to eat outside of our home every morning at a coffee shop and have a cup of coffee because our friends there, our community's there. That's what we want our family to be about. From college education to retirement account to paying off debt, all the way down to the place we choose to have coffee because what it does to our life. All of those things, to me, fit in the category of who you are and what you value and what you want to do with your time, and therefore what you want to do with your money.
I think that's a really good point. And I think it goes back to exactly what you just described about the quote unquote absorbent coffee cost, but it's really built around the thing that you value, which is the community that you get from going to that coffee shop and it being a part of your routine in your life versus someone else who shows up and gets the $5 coffee on the way to work, doesn't talk to the person at the register, doesn't know anyone there, etc. So in thinking about what's important to you, thinking about why this cost is important to you. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that your family spent money on as you guys started this budgeting process, some things that had to disappear from your budget that you were saying like, ooh, this is kind of wasteful. This is something that we don't need.
Well, my wife and I and my son, the three of us each kind of have our own budget line that's just like Sarah's money, Rocky's money, Ezra's money. And that's how much money we have every month to spend on things that are specifically for us. And so having a number attached to that makes you really think about the things that you want, the things that you need, and where you want to spend your money. This is really silly, but this is how my brain works, all the way down to like, well, one, my hair is kind of thin and it's falling out a little bit. I don't know, I would say I'm bald, but it's balding, if you will. But I mean, I was going to a barbershop I like with a guy that I like. By the time I get my hair cut and then get a shave and then give him a good tip, I was spending $40, but I'm kind of high maintenance, so I want my hair to be cut all the time. And so I was going 2 times a month. So I'm spending $80 a month out of my money and my budget to get my hair cut. So you know what I did? I shaved my head.
Because you were almost bald anyway.
You know what I'm saying? Me or my wife gives me a haircut and I just save myself $80 a month. And by saving myself, I mean, now I have $80 a month to spend back on me the way that I want to. So that's either a gym membership, that's buying the new shirt, whatever those things are. So I think really for us, getting a budget really makes us think about what are we doing? And when dollars go out of the account and you have to track that and put that someplace, you're really able to see, okay, what am I doing and how am I spending it and what is happening? I think all those things change once you really sit down and put a budget together to go, okay, how do we actually want to be spending our money?
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the conversation that you and your wife had? Because I know one of the things that we get into sometimes is it's my money and this is how I handle the money. And then you get into a relationship and somebody has their own way of doing things. You have your way of doing it and then trying to mesh those ways and get on the same page. So can you talk a little bit about being married and handling money and having good conversations around that?
Yeah. So, I think for my wife and I, we are definitely on the same page. I think we've always been on the same page. We don't have a my money and your money. We have our money. It's our money. It's one account. Everything goes to one place. And so I think that's a part of our communication style and our relationship. And we've never split things up like that. We've never had, this is mine, this is yours, or I spend this. Or even before we had a budget, we always kind of had a conversation. Like neither of us is allowed to buy anything over $100 without making sure the other person knows and is okay with the fact that we're going to buy something over $100. Even if it's a business expense, I run everything past her before I buy anything over $100. So for us, that was just a good way to go, hey, we're in this thing together. We live together. We die together. And so let's just have a really open dialogue. What do we want to do with our money? And again, I'm a weirdo. I want to talk about everything. I want to hash through everything. And so I think, and my wife would be very similar. Honestly, I would say she's probably the reason we have better finances than me. Well, I wouldn't even say maybe. She for sure is. She's much more detail oriented. She's much more thoughtful. She's much more intentional. She makes sure we're in the right place at the right time. So it's something that we both agreed on. We said we wanted to do. We have one pot of money and it has to be allocated. I think being entrepreneurs and being a small business owner is a big part of that too. It forces you to think about money a little bit differently because you got to have money to run a business and you can't just spend it all and then have none because that's not how things work either. So yeah, I think we're really fortunate. We have a really great relationship and a really good marriage and we have each other's back. We want to make sure that what we're doing and we're doing well and we're doing it for each other.
I think that's really important. The open and honesty around the money. Like you said, really operating as a unit. You guys come together as one when you get married. And then some people, like you said, have these two separate pots and really deciding that we're going to operate as a unit. It's a hard thing to do, but it seems like you guys have nailed it and you seem all the better for it.
Oh, 100%.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about where you are now. What are you up to? You said you're an entrepreneur, some of your ventures and...
Yeah. So I'm a professional speaker and I have a program or a process I've created called identity mapping. So I walk individuals and teams of all sizes through a process to help them identify what it means to be human, who they are, why they do what they do, how they do it, and what they do. So I do that for individuals and for teams and for entrepreneurs. And then again, businesses of all sizes. And then as well as keynote speaking. That generates the majority of all of our income. That's what I do full time. We pay ourselves. Our salary is based off of that account. And so all the money that's made out of the account comes from what I'm able to make. We also have a property in East Texas called the Wild House. If you're listening to this and you want to see it, it's on Instagram. It's the Wild, WILDE house. You should check it out. So we run that as Airbnb. So it generates probably $1,000 or a couple $1,000 a month for us of income. And then my wife is a photographer part-time. So she does that. So those are the kind of things that we do now that generate income for us.
Did you ever have a regular 9 to 5 before you became entrepreneurs? Or have you always been just entrepreneur?
No, I mean, I worked at a summer camp out of college, and I did that, I don't even know if that was it. That was typical 9 to 5. I was on the road recruiting, and then I was with college students, and then I was at summer camp all summer. So that definitely was never normal. I worked at a church. I was a pastor at a church for about 4 years. During that time, it was probably the closest thing to a 9 to 5 I've ever had. Again, it wasn't a Monday through Friday, but nonetheless, it was still a regular routine schedule. And then I resigned from my job. And my wife was at a 9 to 5. She was an architect and interior designer for about 1.5 years out of college. And she quit her job Thanksgiving of 2009, and I quit my job around Thanksgiving of 2010.
Got it. Can you talk a little bit about like what the strategy was or the mindset during the time that you decided to leave your 9 to 5 and go full-time entrepreneurship? I know that's something that a lot of people are dealing with. Like, I have this side hustle that I want to be my full-time thing, but I'm afraid to leave my job. So what was that process like for you?
Yeah, like I said, I'm definitely a risk taker. And so we hey, our marriage is what we want, and you don't like your job and you don't want to do it. So we got to change. And so we just said, hey, we'll downsize. We moved from a 1,500 square foot apartment to a 500 square foot apartment. We sold a car and paid cash for a scooter. I drove a scooter, and we lived off my salary for about 1 year so that my wife could quit her job and start a photography business. I think we've always kind of been the people that say, like, if we want to do something, let's figure out what we got to do to make that thing happen. And that's really kind of what we did. Then did it again when I quit my job, and then have kind of changed businesses a couple times. If someone's got a side hustle and that wants to make the jump, they should probably talk to you first and get their money in order so they don't make a stupid decision. Taking risks is not about being unwise. Taking risks is about knowing that there's potential for things not to go the way that you expected. But there's a way to do that with wisdom and a way to do that that's smart. And so be smart. Think about it. Make sure you have savings. Make sure you can live. If you can side hustle and you can store money away so you can put up 3 or 4 or 6 or 12 months worth of salary in an account, then take the leap and then do it and then be in it. I think the number one thing that people do that jeopardize both sides is they have a full-time job for security and they have a side hustle for passion, but they don't ever do either one of them 100% because they're afraid of what's going to happen. Be committed. Be committed to your 9 to 5, own that, have a good salary, take that direct deposit. Nobody's sending me money because they like me. So the fact that someone's sending you money because you have a job, don't be sad about that. But if that's not where your heart is, that's not where you're passionate about, it's not what you want to do, figure out what that thing is and then go after it. But give it 100%. Be willing to be afraid and to be scared and to have moments where you think, man, I don't know if it's going to work, because I can guarantee you there's no one in the world made like you. There's no one in the world designed like you. Give it your time, effort, and energy to do something. If you believe in it, it's going to pay off in the end. It may not pay off where you're a millionaire, but that's not what life is anyway.
For sure. I think that's well said too, because like you said, entrepreneurship is not by any means something that it's like, woohoo, this is so fun every day. It is a roller coaster of like, oh my God, this is so awesome. Oh my God, why the hell did I decide I wanted to do this thing? But when you're 100% passionately pursuing something, you know it's the right thing. You can weather that storm, those roller coaster rides, and really stick it out. But it all starts with a plan. You can't do anything if you don't say, hey, this is the thing I'm going to go 100% full force toward, and this is my plan to get there. And these are all the things that could go wrong. And this is my plan for that if it does go wrong. And then we know nothing ever goes quite as planned anyway, but it's still important to have a plan so that you at least have something in place so that you can pivot when it's appropriate versus just getting out there, jumping off the deep end and then saying, oh crap, what do I do now? I guess I better teach myself how to swim.
Exactly. Yeah. Jumping in the ocean and try to figure out to see if you've remembered how to swim is a terrible idea.
Terrible idea. With that said, let's talk a little bit about what's the hardest thing about entrepreneurship in your eyes?
I think the hardest thing about entrepreneurship is just trusting the process, being patient. Because of social media, we get this perception that we have the ability to build an overnight success really quickly. We think we have the ability to go, hey, I'm going to start this business. Everyone's going to love it. I'm going to get 100,000 followers, get paid to do sponsored posts. People are going to pay to market on my site. I'm going to sit back, have an email list, and money's just going to fly in.
Yeah, no.
Probably not. That's probably not how it works. The hardest part is being patient, trusting that, hey, do you believe in what you're doing? Do you have a product or service that people want to purchase to a specific group? And you're really going to do the work to go in and not try to make yourself like everyone else, but you're going to push really hard to put in the work, to put in the effort, to balance the, hey, we want to do this. And, you look around at your friends and they're going here and they're spending this and they don't ever seem to think about money. They've never seen, he's got a job and she's got a job. And so, I'm looking at what we're paying ourselves and they're making double that because they're both have salaries and thinking like, damn, if I could, like, I'm hoping for an extra $600 a month and they're bringing in an extra $8,000 a month. You got to let go of that. If you want to be an entrepreneur because you think you're going to be rich, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer and I'm not telling you can't make money. I don't know very many entrepreneurs who do it solely for the money. They do it because they believe in it. They do it because they love it. They do it because they want a different lifestyle. They do it because they want to spend time with their family. They want to be able to take off on a Tuesday if they want. They do it because very rarely is it because they go, oh, I have an idea that's so grand to be so rich and I just want to sit in the bathtub with my money. The people that I know that have a bathtub full of money are the loneliest people I've ever met. You got to think about why you're doing it and what's the effort worth and what's the energy worth and what's the risk worth and but also what are you giving up? I got to work harder and some nights I got to stay up longer and my retirement's not guaranteed. And if I get hurt tomorrow, what does that mean? If I lose my voice, what does that mean? If I get in a car accident, and there's a million things to think about, right? And so, but I think the hardest part is being patient. The hardest part is trusting the process, being diligent, giving the right effort and energy to the things that actually matter.
Yeah, I think it's really important that when you're making, like you said, this plan, that you think about like, what is it that I'm going after? What is this all worth? What does it all mean to me? What is the one thing that's going to make it worth it? And if your answer is money, then you're going to be, like you said, not feeling fulfilled at the end of the day. So when you're asking yourself what's going to make this worth it, you need to consider being patient because this is the thing that it's worth waiting for. It's the thing that's worth winning. This is the thing that you want. And it's definitely not going to be money. Money is a tool to help you live the life you want. It is a resource to help you build and go after the things that you actually value. It is not the thing that you should be valuing. So I think that's just really good information and really good value just provided.
Preach. Shoot, I'm about to get my tambourine out.
Well, look, since we're on there, we're having a little church. Now it's time to take up the offering. Let's talk about what you think about charitable giving.
Generosity is one of our family's core values. So we give to the church that we attend. We have a pot of money that we're allocated in our budget called gifts. And that's just to buy things for people. That's birthdays and random gifts. We keep some money in our car at all times for whether that's we're giving someone money or we're going to stop in the store and buy somebody food. We have 2 kids that we sponsor from World Vision and we have for probably the last 10 years. Generosity is something that's really, really important to us. That's spending money with all the way down to like spending money on buying clothes that are more expensive, but they're American made from people we know that are going to last longer. But so, we don't get to buy 3 shirts a month. We buy 1 shirt every 3 months, but it lasts us for a year or 2 years or so. I think for charitable giving and generosity is more than just saying, I'm going to give a lump sum to a company. I don't know what they're doing. I think it's from what you do and how you spend it all the way down to what you're actually doing with your money and what that looks like.
Yeah, I think that's really good information because really thinking about what it is that's important to you, saying this is important to me enough that I'm not going to just invest my treasure, but I'm also going to invest my time and my talent in this area to make sure that I'm not just, you said, just throwing dollars at this thing that I don't know anything about because I should or because it's a tax write-off, but saying I'm invested in this. I know these people need my help. I know that this is important because, and really being excited about what you're giving toward. It gives a bigger return on investment to really understand and feel excited about what you're giving toward.
Yeah, listen, I don't know the total demographic of everybody who's going to listen to this or anytime this audio is going to land in the internet somewhere. I don't know anybody who has enough money that the amount of their giving to some organization is actually changing the organization simply because of their money alone, right? I don't know that any of us are writing a check so big to some organization by ourselves that without our check, the organization doesn't function. So do they need it incrementally from 1,000 people giving $100? Yeah, that's a lot of money. But if you're going to be bitter and upset and resentful that you gave $100, keep your money. They don't want it. They don't need it that bad. And so I think that's the thing of like for the majority of us, and let's call it 99% of the population, none of us have enough money that we're giving enough money that we're absolutely changing the course of direction for any organization or person. The reason we're giving has to be greater than the amount that we're giving because none of us are giving amounts that are that big. That doesn't void the fact that we should. I think we should all the more. We have to be able to account for ourselves and go, there's joy in me buying $4.27 worth of food at 7-Eleven for a guy outside because he's hungry and he wants food. And I said, I'll get you some. And he said, okay. And I bought it for him. All the way down to buying a good gift for a friend, all the way down to what I'm going to buy for my wife, all the way down to taking money out of my budget to buy her something that she wanted that's too expensive. It has to come from a place of genuine desire for you if you're going to do it. Otherwise, my advice is keep your money.
I think that's great advice. You can't give from a place of, you should be so grateful for whatever it is that I've done for you. I want to be rewarded and celebrated for what I did, whether it's, you said $50, $100, $1,000, whatever. It should be from a place of, I enjoy doing my part and giving my piece of the pie. And I'm really excited about doing good for others. I think that, that's really important. So way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
All right. We're headed toward the end of the podcast and we've got a little bit of a lightning round. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Hit me.
All right. Short answers here. You have $20 in your pocket right now. What do you spend it on?
Ooh, that's a hard question, but I'm probably going to say if I had $20 in my pocket right now, I would take my son and my wife and we'd go to Gloria's. It's our favorite restaurant. It had tons of memories of things that have happened there. And we can get the chicken tostadas. We can all share it together. I'll get a frozen margarita with salt. My wife will get one. Ezra will get water. We'll be on happy hour. And all I have to do is spend about $3.42 on my debit card.
Oh, you got $17 left over with your 20 right now.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Something that you do for fun that doesn't cost anything.
I mean, hosting people at our house, hanging out with my family. We're definitely people. We like to have people around. We like to have our house full of people whenever possible. My son recently, he's 2, but he has this little 3-wheeled scooter that he loves. And so myself and him, and I have a buddy down the street, and they have 2 kids. We ride scooters at least once, if not twice a week on a little trail. And so there's a lot of joy that comes from 2 dads and 3 kids being out on scooters together. So I'd probably say that.
That sounds super dope. Okay. Worst advice you've ever received?
Don't worry about it, dude. Just buy it if you want it.
Ooh, that is terrible advice. Best advice you've ever received?
If there's something in life that you want because there's a genuine benefit to somebody else more than benefit for yourself, it doesn't matter what it costs you. It's worth going after.
I think that's some really good advice. Last but not least, what's the most meaningful gift you've received? Who was it from and why was it meaningful?
So for Christmas this year, it was actually a gift to my son, but it was kind of a gift to me as well. My grandfather and I have always had a really interesting relationship. We were super close growing up, and obviously I'm kind of like his only child, but just due to his personality and the way he was raised, once a kid hits about 12 or 13, he kind of loses the ability to have a relationship with him. He never said, I love you. Like that really just wasn't the way he communicated. And so my grandfather's done a million things for me. He's provided for me. He's cared for me. He's somebody that I admire. I mean, I've talked about him multiple times over the course of this conversation. His father, so my great grandfather, bought me a little blue Ford tractor that was a pedal drive cast iron. And I drove it from when I was 4 till I was 10. I mean, nonstop, I rode it. And I thought it was gone. Well, it's been in the barn. This Christmas, my grandfather took it, had it fully restored himself, bought new parts, put it all together, had it repainted, and then had it painted on the back of the trailer where it said Pops, which was my great grandfather, and then an arrow that said Rocky and an arrow that said Ezra, and had it fully redone and would give it to Ezra this Christmas as the same tractor I had, just made fully brand new for him to use. And it took about 8 or 9 months for my grandpa to get it all done and get it put together. And my grandma and I don't talk a ton when we see each other. He's a little bit awkward. He doesn't know what to say. But I wrote him a letter about 9 months ago, kind of telling him how I felt, that I loved him, what I was sorry for, the way I didn't hold up to my end of our relationship, but what I was willing to do moving forward. And that, I just wanted him to know how I felt and expected nothing from him. I just wanted him to know where I was coming from. And so for him to this kind of be the fruition of that letter, even though he's never said anything to me about it, but I know he got it, to be something he would do specifically for my son was just probably easily one of the best gifts I've ever been given.
That is unbelievable. Even like the reconciliation of a relationship and the gift, all that represents is just unbelievable.
Yeah, it was awesome.
All right. One final question. We have 2 models on Worth Winning. One of them is it's not about the numbers, but about the strategies. I think sometimes people focus way too much on the amount and, counting other people's pockets and money, how much, if I only had more, et cetera, when really it's all about the knowledge that's needed to experience any kind of growth. So with that said, our final question is, can you share with us one thing that you would like to improve about your finances in the upcoming year? Yeah,
I think I would like for this is probably going to sound crazy considering we've been entrepreneurs for 8 years. But for me this year, my goal it's my goal this week is to sit down and look, get from my accountant, get on my P&Ls. That's profit and losses for those of you that are more money inept than me, which is hard to believe. But there's some of you out there to look at all those and go, okay, how much money is this business actually costing me? And then how much money am I actually putting out there? And how much money am I paying myself? So how much money do I actually really, really need to make every month so that I can have some sort of actual tangible monetary goal that's fixed on strategy, not fixed on, oh shit, we need another payment this month. Let me follow up with somebody. I want to have a different plan. I want to be able to go, okay, I have 3 months worth of salary in my business account. I have 1 month's salary in my personal checking account. We've got 2 months salary in our savings account. I want to be 6, 7, 8 months ahead so that if nobody pays me for 7 months, we're okay. I got to go back and look and build a strategy based on the real time, real thing, real numbers, real effort, real energy, real pricing, real clients, and put that together. And so, yeah, I think for me, that's the one thing this year that I'm looking to really improve on. I think give me some better guidance as to really land somewhere better there.
What's the action item though? Like, what are you actually going to do to make sure that has?
I have a girl that is recently hopefully going to start working for me. And so 1, having some accountability with her. And then 2, like sitting down with somebody else who's not me and looking at it with me and let them tell me, hey, stop spending money here. This money is okay to spend. Do you really need this? Do you need this subscription? Do you need this? And like really going through and cutting some of those costs down. And then knowing, okay, here's how much money I need. And I don't think I've really ever sat down and said, here's how much money I need to make every month. And there's how much money I need to make therefore every year. And so what is my price all the way down to like, so what is the price per client? And what am I charging people? And how many of those do I actually think I can get? And how many really laying all those things out so I can put a clear plan together and then go, okay, let's execute on this. Let's go. Okay, if this is how much I want to work and this is how much I want to make, I'm not charging enough. Or if this is how much I want to work and this is how much I want to make and I am charging enough, hey, we're in a good position. Now let's hit the ground running. Like, let's follow up with those leads. Let's get out there. Let's, there's 1, looking at the past, 2, looking at a plan, putting a new plan together, 3, building a strategy of that plan, and then 4, executing that plan.
There it is. And the accountability, I think, is going to be a key part.
Oh, yeah.
Building the proper financial entourage of people around you, people you can trust, people you can talk to that will hold you accountable is key in any plan for financial success. All right. Without further ado, can you just tell us a little bit, like, we're done, we wrapped up, and we want to know where we can find you, how we can help you, what you're up to. Give us the spiel that lets us know how we can support you.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, and my website. Everything is the same. Instagram.com/Rocky Garza. That's ROCKYGARZA. LinkedIn.com/Rocky Garza. Facebook.com/Rocky Garza. RockyGarza.com. Any of those, Google Rocky Garza. There's not very many of us, so you'll see me out there. Yeah, follow along. Our goal this year is to create some really good and meaningful content, video and audio content, not even for our clients, just for general public, general audience. And so that's stuff that's going to go out daily. There'll be daily content for you guys to see. And that's around what are your values? What are your strengths? How do you see yourself? Obstacles, doubts, and securities. Who are you? Why does that matter? Making changes, whether that's entrepreneur, whether that's corporate world, whether that's business, whether that's family, personal, whatever it is. So yeah, I would greatly appreciate it. Hop on there, follow along on whatever platform you see fit. We'll do our best to make sure we're hitting content on all the different platforms. If you're looking for a keynote speaker, somebody to talk about people, identity, values, who you are, why that matters, how to be effective, kind of in a realm, but a little bit of counseling, a little bit of motivation, a little bit of strategy. That's kind of the world we live in. So let me know.
All right. That's dope. Thanks so much for being on the show, Rocky.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Rocky's Money Memoir. I want you to walk away with information that helps you take action in organizing your finances so you can pursue your goals. Rocky gave us some valuable nuggets today, including the importance of doing things that you value in life. He shared about the challenges that entrepreneurs face both in their business and with finances, along with the importance of having a budget. He also shared with us how important it is to have the right attitude when being generous and how money should not be your motivator, but the thing that helps you do what is important to you in life. Money is a tool to reach your goal and shouldn't be the goal itself. Our word of the day today, mutual fund. A mutual fund is a type of investment. When you purchase a mutual fund, you get to own a piece of several companies. The value of the mutual fund depends on the performance of the companies it decides to buy. So when you buy a share of a mutual fund, you're actually buying the performance of its portfolio and the companies you own within that portfolio. There are some internal fund fees associated with the purchase of a mutual fund. Some of the fees you should ask your advisor about are an advisory fee or management fee, administrative costs, sales charges, and commissions. If you don't have a financial planner, then check out worth-winning.com to see if you think we might be a good fit for you. If you have suggestions for guests or would like to share your money memoir, please contact us through our website, worth-listening.com. Thank you for tuning in today, and we hope you found this episode worth listening to.